What's good, YouTube? It's White Mike, and today we're going to be covering the Alpha 1 or Sony A1 announcement. But before we get started, if you're not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, as it really helps me out, and I appreciate every sub. And who knows, I might just subscribe to you as well. Please subscribe. I'm like 11 subs away from hitting 1,000. With that said, let's get into it. So a few days ago, Sony put up a scheduled video for an announcement on the 26th of January, or today when I'm recording this, and it had a lot of people excited and curious as to which camera could be getting announced. I heard rumors from it being anything from the RX camera to an A7 IV, a curved sensor camera, as well as an A9 III, but no, it turned out to be the full-blown, top-of-the-line flagship A1 camera body. Now, before I jump into the specs and features, I just want to say my first impressions were that I was pretty blown away that they could pack so much into one camera. Basically, industry-leading features in a single camera body for $6,498 USD. That's right, $6,498. So what do you get for that price? The Sony A1 sports a stacked 50.1 megapixel Exmor RS CMOS full-frame sensor with integral memory that can do up to 30 frames per second. The autofocus system can do up to 120 calculations per second for autofocus and auto exposure. Not only that, there is zero blackout. It has a viewfinder with a refresh rate of 240, which is a first, but all in all, it's the same 9.44 million dot EVF found in the A7S III otherwise. And one of the biggest features is that it can shoot 8K video. This camera also has what I would call Sony's standard 15 plus stops of dynamic range, so it's no slouch in that department. It also has an ISO sensitivity range of 100 to 32,000, expandable from 50 to 102,400 when shooting stills. As for video, you're limited to 32,000 ISO max, it looks like, but I'm not sure what the base S-Log ISO is, maybe 500 or so. If you're a photographer, you'll be happy to know that you can now do flash photography at up to 1/200th of a second in electronic shutter mode, or now there's a higher speed flash sync up to 1/400th of a second with the dual driven shutter mode. And of course, the silent shutter mode, not really a feature, but it's there. However, what you get is a new anti-distortion shutter, because from my experience, silent shutters will distort like crazy. One of the best features for photographers is the flicker-free electronic and mechanical shutters, where it will eliminate banding that you sometimes see from LEDs in current cameras. The autofocus uses 92% coverage and 759-point phase detect AF and 425 contrast detect AF points. Of course, it has the new real-time tracking and IAF features, but for the first time, it can track the eyes of birds. I think this feature will also come to the other Sony cameras via an update, at least any of the Sonys that support animal IF at this point in time. Jumping back into video, we get the real-time IAF for movies. This is surely a feature going forward for all cameras, and I love it on my A7C and my A7S III. They didn't really go into detail during the announcement, but it does 8K up to 30 frames per second. It is doing an 8.6K downsample to 8K and shoots at 10-bit 420, so no 422 for 8K, with a 400 megabits H.265 codec for more than your standard 30 minutes in most cameras, or 29.59. Also, note you do not get Super 35 mode in 8K. You do get 4K recording up to 120p with AF tracking. It does look like 4K 120p is cropped though by 10%. Not a fan of that, but most people aren't aware that the A7S III also has the same crop in 120p. And it doesn't look like 120p supports the active IS mode. You do get the log profiles and S-Cinetone just like the A7S III has, which is always great, and of course it does 10-bit 422, but only in 4K. Though you can record all I, it is only available in 4K and HD modes. It does support HDR recording, which is nice to have. I don't personally use it. You do, however, get the 16-bit RAW output to the HDMI, which is 4K only. It does give you a 5.8K downsample, but only in the Super 35 mode or APS-C mode. So it looks to me like this is in line with the A7R series, and it's just a better crop sensor video camera than in a full frame mode. All that means is that in full frame mode, you'll get line skipping. On top of the 5.5 stops of stabilization from the IBIS, you do get the active mode IS, or active IS for a lack of a better term, for up to the 4K 60 mode, which is maybe a 1% crop. It does have the same cooling as the A7S III, it looks like, but that screen, Sony, make up your mind. Speaking of the body design, the fact that they kept the full-size HDMI is very nice. Thanks for that, Sony. You also do get Ethernet and a sync input for professional work. The built-in Wi-Fi is nothing new, but a little bit quicker, but it also supports FTP and high-speed USB tethering with a 5G smartphone. Now, I don't know if this means their smartphone or any smartphone running their app. I guess we'll see. Speaking of that smartphone, $2,500 Sony, I mean, you're kidding me, right? You get the same card slots as the A7S III, which is nice. The body seems to be a mix of the A9 II, the A7R4, and the A7S III. I just wish they would pick a design here. For instance, the record button isn't on the top like the A7S III. And again, Sony, that screen. Of course, you get the magnesium alloy body, a nice overpriced battery grip, and improved weather sealing thanks to that new Sony body design. I also don't know why this was the last thing they mentioned, but you can finally do small RAW files, or lossless compressed as they call it, just no uncompressed small RAW. So I think some people will like that for smaller file sizes and JPEG Lite. That in a nutshell is the Sony A1 or Alpha 1, whatever you want to call it. I'm just gonna call it the A1. So again, that's $6,498 compared to, let's see, the A9 II at $4,498 and the A7S III at $3,498. I mean, this announcement to me makes the S3 seem like a great deal, even though at one point it was touted as overpriced. That's just my opinion, but I'd be hard pressed to spend $3,000 just to get 8K. So will I be buying the Sony A1? Hell no. But there's someone out there who this camera is for. So let's talk features. I really think that this is a very exciting announcement overall. There's not been a Sony camera with this many features packed into a single small package at this price point, and I think it's a step in the right direction. What everyone here should be most excited about is what's going to be trickling down into the next A7 IV, A7R5, or A7C2 cameras. That's why you should be excited even if this camera isn't for you. So let's talk design. In terms of the design, it keeps the same overall aesthetic as the new generation Sony cameras. However, the inconsistencies are a bit annoying. For example, keep the buttons in the same place, don't move the record button to different places on different bodies, and pick a screen, please. I prefer the tilt and swivel, but hey, everyone has a preference. I mean, why not make a modular package where you can just swap them and just have it as an option at checkout? Just a thought. I have no other complaints. It's a great looking camera, and I mean, it looks like a Sony. My takeaways and questions. My only concern is that the 8K is just an afterthought, and it may be due to the camera having that 50 megapixel sensor. Sony was basically like, hey, we can do 8K, but have you seen our other features? This is just me thinking out loud here, but I feel there is some sort of limitation in 8K. It might be that it overheats, or it could be that it's not 10-bit 422, which it's not, hell, or all the above. They really didn't give us any details on the 8K, but I was able to find some information on their website, and I provided links in the description if you want to check that out. For my personal usage, this would be paying $3,000 for a camera that can do some form of 8K with worse ISO performance, but not in a way that would justify the price tag. And I'm solely speaking from a video feature perspective here. There's a ton of things in this camera that make it a monster, and I frankly don't need 8K, and I believe that 90% of people don't need it either. So who should buy this camera? I think this camera is for the professional hybrid shooter who is making a good chunk of money and wants the best of the best in regards to a photo first camera that can do amazing video as well. If you're an A7 III or A7S III user like I am, I don't think this camera is for you, and I advise you to wait for the A7 IV to either grab that as your main cam or a backup, because it would definitely get some features borrowed from both of this camera and the A1. With that said, what are your thoughts on the camera? Will you be grabbing the A1, waiting for the A7 IV like me? If you have an A7S III, does this make you want to sell it an upgrade, for the lack of a better term? All in all, at least we're getting these announcements during this crazy time in the world, and really gonna be, you know, pushing innovation in the industry. So there's always an upside to this no matter what camera system you use. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, hit the notification bell if that's something that you're into. That's a wrap.